The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon and welcome to today's edition of Lunch with Haley. We will begin in approximately 2 minutes. Well, good afternoon and welcome to today's edition of Lunch with Haley. My name is Matt Lozar, Director of Recruitment Marketing here at Haley Marketing Group, and we're going to be presenting today about what else? Recruiting. And one of the big challenges, obviously, continuing to plague companies in the staffing industry, out of the staffing industry. And today we'll be talking about, if you have no applications, it's not your fault, but here's how to fix it. So we're making sure everything's all set on our end as we get ready to start our presentation today. If you have any questions, please feel free to to ask them in the questions tab. I'll do my best to monitor that throughout the presentation, and we will be monitoring those questions. If you have any, love for you to ask. Thank you for joining us here today. But as we get started here on today's presentation about no applications, it's not your fault, but here's how to fix it. Let's get started. And at the beginning of the presentation, we're going to have some math. I will do my best to keep it simple, but we will have some math today. Earlier today, I had a LinkedIn Live on my LinkedIn profile where we talked about some simple math to talk about job applications. Would love for you to be able to head over there and check it out if you could. But today we're going to walk through some of the challenges facing all companies right now. And the unemployment rate, with the April 2022 data, it's back down to 3.6%, basically where it was back in February 2020 before the COVID pandemic started. The labor force participation rate, this is one of the big ones where it is down 1.2%. It's 1.2% lower than it was in February 2020, which doesn't sound like a lot, but when you do some math, 1.2% reduction in the labor force participation rate means there's 3.12 million workers not in the workforce right now. That's a really big number. That's a challenge. That's a problem right now. And then the next slide, we're going to showcase job openings. We all know companies have a lot of job openings right now, and the current data is showing that's an increase of 4.6 million since the end of 2020. It's up over close to 12 million job openings. Before COVID, it was just 7 million. So there is unemployment's about the same as we can see, basically the same as pre-COVID. 3 million fewer workers in labor force participation rate, 11.6 million open jobs, 4 million more than pre-COVID. All data we can't control, out of our control, not anything we can really do about that. That's the reality of our situation right now. Unemployment's the same as it was before a couple years ago. There's fewer people looking for work, and there's more open jobs. That's a tough combination for anyone out there who is trying to hire. So the other part of this reality of the situation is things have gotten more expensive. And it's in my world where I focus a lot on recruitment marketing, which we'll talk about for the most of the presentation today. We'll get into some social recruiting as well. The cost to advertise online has increased a lot. And this is not just before inflation, but just as it continued to go up with the competitiveness. Facebook advertising is up 61%. TikTok is up nearly 200%, as that's a very popular platform for any industry. Google impression, the cost of getting your ad seen in the Google display network is up nearly 75%. Clicks are up 14%. I know a lot of companies and have experienced the pain of their job slot costs increasing when renewal time came at the end of 2021, where it was 100, 200, 300% renewal price increases. So to have that same job slots package of 10 job slots, 20 job slots, whatever your package of job slots is, the cost of that just increased because the job boards know it's a difficult recruiting situation. They know that staffing agencies do a fantastic job of showcasing, of getting a lot of applications out of those job slots, and the prices have increased. And this combination of a tough employment market, increasing cost, is leading to a lot of frustration. We hear it, we see it. There's a lot of frustration out there. So what are you going to do when you have that frustration? It feels like you want to give up sometimes and wave the white flag. We need some help. And that's what we're here to do today. We're going to provide some tips, provide some great takeaways on what to do in your recruitment marketing, and focusing on all of that 4 pillars of recruitment marketing, where we focus on career sites, job advertising, social recruiting, and employer branding. We'll really focus on job advertising today. We'll talk a little bit about career sites. We'll talk about social recruiting and the elimination of Facebook jobs at the end of the presentation, and employer branding will be mixed in as well. But the first thing I want to start with here is, spending more isn't a recruiting strategy. As we've started to really dig into job advertising the last 4 or 5 years here at Haley Marketing, we started to learn about what can we do to help companies manage that job advertising. And just throwing more money at the job boards usually isn't the best recruiting strategy. It's not one where we just, we're going to spend 20% more and expect to get 20% more applications, or we're going to spend 20% more just to hope to stay at the level we were at a few months ago. Spending more isn't a strategy. I look at the data. I've been looking at data my whole life. I looked at baseball cards when I was 4. I've studied statistics in college. Had a previous job in athletics where I kept statistics. And now here at Haley Marketing, we look at a lot of data where we're analyzing all that information. And spending more isn't the right recruiting strategy. We need to spend smarter. That's what's really important. And it's important for companies to have a smart recruiting plan with everything that they are focusing on. We need to spend smarter. We need to have our goals on what's our target number of applications we want to get in a month or in a job. We want to try to figure out what's our cost per application should be. We want to look at our conversion rate, the number of clicks that leads to an application. If it goes up, if it goes down, how do we adjust? We want to look at our cost per click. If our cost per click is increasing, what does that mean for our recruitment strategy and our recruitment budget? If our cost per click is decreasing, what does that mean? We look at jobs to budget ratio, where we're analyzing, with your budget, do you need more jobs in the budget? Do you need fewer jobs in the budget? Do you need less money, more money? All of these different combinations that are tough and challenging, because with so many companies trying to battle for candidates and find the candidates that are looking for open jobs and trying to switch jobs, and not only that, but will stay with your company for an extended period of time, it's vital to spend smarter. You don't want to be spending money on job boards, getting a lot of clicks and not a lot of applications. You don't want to spend money on your recruiting, have candidates go through the onboarding process, and then after a day, leave to take another job. We want to really focus on all of that together. And we see that people are applying to jobs, and now we're going to talk about what you need to do to get them. And I know people are applying for jobs because at Haley Marketing, we're managing 40-ish companies right now in their job advertising, and we're seeing the applications coming in. The cost per application has been pretty consistent the last 4 to 6 months, maybe even down a little bit in Q2 compared to Q4 2021. And we'll see cost per clicks decrease by 17% in the first 3 months of companies we're working with, and 30% in the first 6 months. So the right strategies that we're going to talk about today are working. You can take them back to your company and implement them. That's how we know people are applying to jobs. They're out there switching jobs. We're not even talking about the Great Resignation right now, which is a whole different conversation. But in staffing and recruiting, what can we do to get the people to switch to your jobs? What can we focus on? And the first part, it's not placing a newspaper ad. Trust me, we're not going back to that part of our strategy. It might work, but I'm not going to focus on that today's presentation. But we want to start with job titles, because that's the first thing a job board, a job aggregator, Google, anywhere is going to display. And job titles must equal what candidates want. That's what's really important. We need to have the job title match what someone is expecting to see when they type in a search query. So let's walk through an example here. On the right, we see some data. And the data on the right is coming from Indeed Hiring Insights. Indeed Hiring Insights is a great tool that you are able to use to get some information and focus on finding out what people are searching for on Indeed and adjust your job titles, your recruitment postings, et cetera, because of that. And the data on the right showcases what people are searching for in Florida when looking at the job of marketing specialist. Marketing specialist was a job our client was trying to fill, and the job description for the marketing specialist position they had an order for is not what was on people were expecting to see. So let's walk through this. The job was a marketing specialist in Florida. It was really focusing on creating marketing proposals, updating forms, collecting data. The data on the right is showing when Matt would go to Indeed, type in marketing specialist into Indeed, and jobs would come back. The next thing I would click on, that's what's in this chart here on the right. I typed in marketing specialist in Florida, or the data Indeed is showing us when people typed in marketing specialist in Florida, the number one thing they clicked on was social media. The second thing, sports marketing, then digital marketing, then graphic designer, another sports management, legal assistant, library. That didn't match up with the job that this company is trying to fill. The job is focusing on marketing proposals, updating forms, collecting data. That's not social media. I used to work in sports management and sports marketing. It's not that. It's not a graphic designer. The data, taking the next step to try to figure out, okay, what should this title be? We were able to collect the data and share the title of the job really should be marketing associate, marketing assistant, marketing coordinator. That's what candidates were typing into Indeed before clicking on the job. That's what was really the title of the job should have been. And they adjusted it and were able to get some more applications. But it's really vital to understand what candidates are searching for on Indeed, ZipRecruiter, the other job boards, Google, Facebook, etc. Because a job aggregator is like a search engine. Indeed, ZipRecruiter, they're just like Google. We go to Google, we type in a query, Google provides the best results to answer the question that we typed in. The same thing happens on Indeed and ZipRecruiter. We're going there, we're searching for jobs. It provides results based on its algorithm and the millions of calculations I'm sure it conducts in the nanoseconds after we click the button to display a list of results returning from its database. So in this example, changing the title would lead to a better candidate. Not only that, changing the title would lead to a better quality candidate. If I was looking for a marketing specialist job and I'm interested in social media or sports marketing and I apply for this job and I get there on the first day and find out it's not what I'm looking for, I'm going to leave and go to another job. So it's vital to have titles match what people are searching for. You don't want fun titles. Save those for the business cards. Save those for the email signatures. Simple titles on what people are searching for will have a big impact. Let's walk through a couple of examples here about that. Transportation staffing client out in California. where we did some research for them. You could see their new list of jobs on the right, but previously the jobs would just say Class A driver or Class A regional driver, Class A hazmat driver, you see at the top there, Class A flatbed driver. They didn't have the word truck in the job titles. Did some research. We saw that a lot of candidates searching for transportation jobs in California were just typing in truck driver or maybe Class A truck driver into Indeed before searching for a job. By making that adjustment in the middle of month, this was actually the middle of May last year, the change by making all their jobs say Class A truck driver or Class B truck driver, Class A regional truck driver, etc., that change in adjusting the job titles decreased their cost per application by 12%, increased the amount of applications they received by 42% by just adding one word to the job title. Testing really helped here. And being able to do that research, implement the research, led to some really nice results. Application costs were down by more than 10%. The quantity of applications increased by more than 40% by conducting some research, using the data to our advantage on what job seeker trends were, and then implementing that into their job listings, their postings, and really being able to collect a lot of applications, receive them based on what job seekers were looking for. Another example, very similar, but different industry, different part of the country, going back down to the Sunshine State in Florida, and apartment staffing. And this company hires for leasing positions, maintenance positions, typical property management, apartment staffing positions. And their title originally was just leasing consultant. You look in some data and it showed leasing agent was a very popular title candidates were looking for. Or hiring immediately. Now hiring is a very popular search in Indeed. Candidates will literally go to Indeed, ZipRecruiter, job boards, anywhere, and just type in now hiring and see what comes back. Because the algorithm knows where you're located. The algorithm knows which jobs you're previously looked for. So it knows that Matt Lozar is in Buffalo and he works in marketing. So if I just typed in now hiring into my search browser, it probably would come back with jobs based off of my past history. So for this situation, made some different job title testing through automation, through programmatic software that we use here at Haley Marketing. We use software to automate. So every time a job came in as leasing consultant, we also showed that job, displayed it as a leasing agent or a leasing consultant hiring immediately, because that's what the search trends were showing. That's what the data revealed. With the same budget, they tripled their applications, went from 76 to 237 applications in the span of a month, just by adjusting their job titles and also adjusting those job titles to what people are looking for. So conduct some research and learn and try to figure out what people want. And you're able to do that through some different titles, or some different methods. Indeed, Hiring Insights is a really great way, a tool to use. If you're a featured employer or if you have the right resume package through Indeed, you're able to get Indeed Hiring Insights and look at data from previous months, showcases competitiveness of jobs, how competitive is that job in your region, showcases salary, how many job seekers there are in your area for those jobs, how many jobs are posted in that area, but also titles for jobs, which companies are posting those jobs. So with job titles and Indeed Hiring Insights, you can look, like we talked about earlier, the job that was titled as marketing specialist, the data showed us it needed to be marketing coordinator or marketing assistant. That data is really great. This image on the right here is from Google Search Trends. Use Google to your advantage. Just go to Google. I typed in, I think, marketing specialist jobs the other day. Scrolled down to the bottom. This is what showed up. Marketing specialist is still there. My geography is there because I'm located in Buffalo, New York. But also there's some other jobs, senior marketing specialist, brand marketing specialist, sales and marketing specialist, product marketing specialist. To me, that's showing people are conducting a lot of searches on Google for those titles. Does that match what your job should be? Is it just a marketing specialist job, or maybe it's a brand marketing specialist posted as a couple of different variations? Use that data to your advantage. The Career Builder Supply and Demand Report usually has a really nice data to help you there, and use that to your advantage. Finally, at the bottom here, we need to track, because if we're not tracking that information, it's not going to help us. This works with geography as well. I'm working with a company now where they have a base city, and then there were some surrounding cities where we're posting the jobs. And some of the surrounding cities had a higher cost per application or just weren't getting a lot of clicks. By being able to track that data, we could turn off the titles that weren't working, the city expansions that weren't working, and spend smarter with their money. That's what we really want to do. The last point on this slide is manual versus automation. I don't think people want to start posting dozens of variations of the same jobs. It may be your version of fun, but not mine. I like to automate it and to program software to do that, where every time a job comes in that was, let's say, Class A driver, we could also post it as Class A truck driver. Or the other example, every time the job came in as leasing consultant, we also posted as leasing agent. We also posted as leasing agent hiring immediately. You also posted as leasing agent now hiring. One job can become 5 jobs, can become 20 jobs, and can really help you reach more candidates to drive more applications and have your jobs become a better match for what people are looking for. Let's move on to the next part, and we're going to look at choose your word: job description, job posting, job advertisement. It's probably in the backwards order because we want to list them more as job postings or job advertisements, not just as job descriptions. Job descriptions are a little boring at times because that's what the job actually is, and we need to get people excited for the job. And the takeaway for job postings is what's in it for me. That's really vital and important to focus on, not only with job postings, but if we look at recruiting or your content overall, any of your content. Why should I read your content? A job posting, a job advertisement is content. It's content to get me to want to work for your company. So it's really important to focus on the what's in it for me. That what's in it for me is the job candidate. No other person, not the recruiter, not your hiring manager, not the client you're staffing for, no one else. It's vital to have those first 2 to 4 sentences be reflective of that mantra. What's in it for me is really important. And I love this example. It comes from one of our clients, and it showcases the example perfectly. This is an industrial client, warehouse jobs, and the first couple of sentences of this job posting are exactly opposite. The top one: where are the warehouse workers who love overtime? Great pay, first shift, and overtime. The bottom job description: looking for a great work-life balance, look no further, first shift production, great hours and weekends off. Pretty opposite job postings for very similar jobs. They're both warehouse jobs, they're both production, etc. positions. I may want overtime right now because that's what fits into my schedule. Maybe my family, friend life, just personal life, I don't want overtime right now. I apply to the job on the bottom. Similar jobs, similar geography, the pay rate's probably very similar, but what's in it for me is 180 degrees opposite in these two job descriptions, job postings. The candidate who wants overtime should apply to that first one. The candidate who doesn't want overtime should apply to the bottom one. Taking that a step further, we talked about it earlier, if this overtime requirement or option isn't posted in the job, and then I go to the job and day 1, day 2, my manager says, hey, Matt, you need to work overtime this weekend. And I say, no, thank you. I'm going to leave. Everyone's frustrated. So getting that information out in the beginning leads to better candidates. Better candidates leads to lower turnover, and really helps you find the right candidate. So what I'd like to talk about is start with that awesome opening statement. First couple of sentences. Don't make it right about the job. Make it about what's important for candidates. What do they want that's different about this job? It doesn't need to be what they're, probably what they're doing on a daily basis. What is unique? Because you're competing with not only other staffing agencies, you're competing with all of the other jobs in your geographic area that have similar hourly rates or wages. If it's $18 an hour, $20 an hour, your candidates probably aren't just applying to staffing agencies. They're applying to retail. They're applying to possibly leisure and hospitality industry. They could be looking at gig jobs with Uber and DoorDash, etc. All those different areas. That's what you have to look at. Start with the opening statement, then go into some details about the job, the pay, the schedule, location, and finally at the bottom, all that job descriptions, responsibilities that you feel like should be in there, it's not very important to your candidates. So focus on the structure, create some templates for your team, maybe 2, 3, 5 of them, so they know what to do when a new job posting, job description, you get a new job order. What do you do with that? How do you make it sound important? Because it is some marketing. You're marketing this job out to candidates. 3 million fewer job people in the workforce, 11.6 million open jobs, unemployment's at 3.6%. Vital to have that position be marketed really well. The next question, how do you figure out what your candidates want? Ask them. Let's keep it simple. Let's ask them what they want at any part of this, at different parts of your interview onboarding process, when you have them on your team as employees, when they leave for another job. Ask them, conduct surveys, focus groups, whatever it takes to understand, because what you think what your candidates want is probably not what your candidates really want. It's not what, it's not important to you. You're not going to the shift every day. You're working, as a recruiter trying to fill the open jobs. You're not working a production job, a call center job, an RN job, a travel nurse job, an IT job, whatever it is. Ask them, create a process, make it simple, explain to them what you're trying to do. And then as you gather that information, one, it helps you with your employer branding, which we'll talk a little bit about later. But two, try some different job posting formats. See what works in the first couple of sentences and test. That's going to be something that's a little more manual, but it's good because it keeps your jobs fresh and you're able to see what is connecting with your candidates. Test some different job posting formats in terms of what candidates want and really see what it is. Do they want 3 10-hour days? Do they want 4 9-hour days? Is it culture, soft skills, training, growth? We talked about earlier, overtime, no overtime. Really important and vital to look at all that information, gather it, do some research, and then implement it into your job postings and connect with your candidates. This next graphic, we're not doing any physics, I promise, but we need to reduce friction with our application format. We cannot make it difficult for candidates to apply to jobs wherever they're applying for them. If it's on your career portal, on your career site, if it's on a job board, a job aggregator, through Google, through Facebook, wherever, we must reduce friction with our application format. And the number one company we have to thank for that is our friends at Amazon. Because I can basically click 1 or 2 buttons on Amazon, click on the product I want, click send to me, and it's on my doorstep in 2 days. Our trends from retail, e-commerce, other aspects of our lives carry over to everything else. Candidates expect everything to be simple, especially on their mobile devices. What information is vital the first time you're trying to get a candidate to apply to a job? And I'm using in quotation marks. When they connect with your company, that first contact information. First time you meet someone at a job fair or at a networking event, are you asking them for 10 pages of information? I laugh about that a little bit because I watch the news every once in a while, and when there's some actual real stories on there, they talk about the New York State Parks was hiring. They were looking for lifeguards. And I'm like, okay, the nerd recruitment marketer in me says to go check this out and see what's happening. And I go to the website, and the application for lifeguards in New York State parks is 6 full pages written out. I don't know about you, but I'm guessing the more than likely high school age, college age lifeguards do not want to fill out 6 pages of information, written or typed. I understand they probably need some of that information. We probably don't need that information right at the start. What can we do to reduce that application length, that process? How many fields do you really need someone to complete on that first connection, that first communication? And then beyond that, think about how someone is interacting with your jobs. If it's on your career portal, what's it look like? If it's on your career portal, what's it look like on mobile and desktop? If you're advertising jobs on Indeed and ZipRecruiter, what is that like? Are you going to use the Indeed apply, Zip apply, those quick apply processes? Pros and cons to that. You will get more applications. Are you going to drive people back to your website? Pros of that is it goes right into your database. The con of that is there's friction. Just because someone has to make an extra click or it opens an extra browser tab or an extra window in their desktop or on their mobile device, you will receive fewer applications. So really think about what you need and what type of information you have. There's an example here at Haley Marketing. Had a conversation with a client last week, and on the left is our short form application. Really short, name, email, phone number, can make zip code required, resume required. On the right is more of our standard, classic application, I think we call it. And it's a little bit longer, right? The information isn't required. Address isn't required. City, state, not required. A little intimidating, maybe just because, I see 10 boxes I have to fill out. There's a couple other things. I don't want to do this. I'm going to go to the next person, job, company, and see if I can find something a little less work, easier, less friction for me to fill out. That's what's vital. And we made this change on the Haley Marketing application. It was a few years ago when we offered the application format on the left, because we see data and it showcases to us what people want. When we changed our clients' applications from this option on the right over to the one on the left, the overall conversions increased by a lot, right? By 20, 25%, went from 39% conversion to almost 50% conversion. When they got to that application page, the drop-off reduced significantly. That's what's really awesome about that statistic. We have to reduce the friction for our job candidates. On the other side of this, a different example, but it came up recently with one of our clients where they were using Indeed Quick Apply. They got shifted over to Indeed Company Apply. As soon as that happened, they had an 80% increase in cost per application. 80% higher, because Indeed was sending candidates back to their website to apply to a very short application. We quickly switched it back and saw instant results. The cost per application steadied itself and got back down to where it was previously. So even with Indeed, when you're kicking around quick apply versus company apply, should I have a candidate stay on that website? Or because I want to get it quickly, but I don't want them to go into the Indeed database. I want to send them back to my website. You will see a significant reduction in applications. Keep the friction as minimal as possible for your candidates, and that will help you drive more applications. About halfway through here. If you have any questions, please feel free to send them through. Monitoring them, and we'll make sure to answer them if we have some time at the end. We've talked about a couple of different tactics: job titles, job descriptions, postings, application format. Now let's dig into some of the money, right? How does all this work? What's some ROI out of this that's showcasing what you can do with your budget? It's important. Let's talk about job advertising. How do you spend smarter? And we probably should keep account of how many times I say this, but the jobs to budget ratio is one of the most important things we're seeing that's helping get the most ROI from your recruitment spend. It's helping companies spend smarter. It's not easy. I'm going to show you where you got to pull one lever one way and another lever a different way in one situation, and vice versa, and all these different combinations. That's where having an expert in understanding the jobs, the budgets, staffing, Indeed, ZipRecruiter, budgets, all those other job boards, etc., is vital to making sure you are spending correctly on the job boards. And by jobs to budget ratio, what do we mean? How many jobs are you sponsoring in your budget? Let's say, keep it simple. I have a $2,000 budget and I have 100 jobs. I have a $2,000 budget. I have 2,000 jobs. I have my $1,000 budget and 100 jobs. What's that ratio look like? A lot of times you're hearing from job boards, fewer jobs for your budget, or jobs the same, more jobs. Let's try that again. Lots of job boards are saying fewer jobs, keep your same budget. Or they're saying keep the same amount of jobs, increase your budget. There we go. At Haley Marketing, we're saying keep your budget the same, sponsor more jobs. Or if you're keeping your job count the same, reduce your budget a little bit. It's not that simple. We're going to walk through some examples, but when we're saying more jobs for your budget, you need some more lines in the water. You need to have more options for candidates. The simple difference between leasing consultant and leasing agent could have your job show up a little bit higher because your job's titled leasing consultant originally on your website. Matt went to the job board and typed in leasing agent. Leasing consultant might show up in my results, but leasing agent is probably going to be a couple of spots higher because it more accurately matches what I searched for. When recruitment is so challenging, you have to do everything you can possible to help yourself. It's kind of like SEO. There's so many different ranking factors and signals, hundreds of them literally from Google. You got to do a lot of little things right. There's not as many little things in job advertising, but you need to do them right, and they add up together and give you a better chance to reach the right candidates. Let's look at some examples of the job to budget ratio. Client we were working for, some data from the end of last year, and at the top was their first month with us. Quite honestly, it stunk. Bad results, cost per application is $21. Should not be $21 for that jobs they were hiring for. It's a tough geographic area, but the industry, general staffing shouldn't be that high with this application process they had. We made some adjustments, increased that job count, right, from 43 to 117, saw that cost per application decrease by a lot, $21 to just under $9. December, more aggressive, up to 200 plus jobs, cost per application was under $7. We got really aggressive with job expansions. We turned in some city expansions. So let's say we're in Buffalo, New York. You also could post a job in Amherst, New York, Tonawanda, New York, Orchard Park, New York, Niagara Falls, New York, wherever. Different city expansions, title expansions. If I have a warehouse worker job, maybe I showed it as warehouse worker, warehouse associate, production worker, material handler, whatever it is, whatever you work with together to make sure you have the right combinations of cities and titles. So we had some more jobs. That helped us increase the jobs to budget ratio, tripled that job count in November, right? We went from 43 to 117. We 5X from October to December, 43 to 224. Really helped us. Added in another job board to supplement. Maybe the traffic wasn't there just on Indeed. They needed some other traffic on ZipRecruiter or a different job board to reach more candidates. That's what was really vital to helping them receive better results from their recruitment budget, right? We're spending smarter here. We're trying to reach more candidates with our jobs to budget ratio. We're trying to spend smarter by not just throwing more money at one option, by diversifying and trying to find your candidates where they are in multiple options. Another example, healthcare recruiter nationwide, new company, trying to get aggressive. They're a startup and increase their budget from August to September by up to $2,500. Didn't work, right? We kept the job count the same, and we learned that wasn't working out. They actually had fewer applications with more budget, the ultimate bad combination. So they increased their budget by $1,700. They received 19 fewer applications. Cost per application was up 50%. We need a different plan. So in quarter 4, we did just that. We'll have a couple more things, but you can see in that column of average job count, slowly increased it to 174, to 244, to 350. Cost per application went down by a lot, to $22, to just under $14, to $7. So from September to December, we saw some really nice results. And what did we do? We had the higher jobs to budget ratio. We worked with that on our client to focus on sponsoring more jobs. They had a lot of jobs, so they could natively sponsor more jobs. We did some job expansions as well. They're in a lot of major cities. They're trying to staff for healthcare jobs nationwide. So we added some suburbs to those major cities because the job might be posted as Chicago, but there's a lot of suburbs to Chicago. So someone might be looking for a job in Arlington Heights. That's really important. Make sure you're trying to reach where your candidates are. But then also they were overpaying for some easy to fill jobs. As we see that data back in September, where we were struggling with really high cost per application, we had too much money on med lab tech jobs. Those should be easier to fill jobs. So we adjusted their campaign strategy. And you can do that too, right? You adjust your campaign strategy to make sure you're not overpaying for some jobs, some applications, right? You want to have your budget allocated correctly for the right jobs. So the nursing jobs received a little bit more money. The med lab technicians received lower money, just less money. We stopped overpaying for those applications. And when you do that, you make sure your campaign structure is correct. You're not overpaying for candidates anymore. That's what you should look at with your budgets, with your campaigns, with all of your different recruitment mix. Make sure look at that cost per click, that cost per application, and you're not overpaying for it. Make sure it fits into the business model. So, look at the jobs to budget ratio worked really well. Look at, through some different expansions, and make sure your combination of your campaigns and your budgets and the types of jobs matches up. So as we saw there, some companies need more jobs, not more budget, right? Example 1, they needed more jobs. Example 2, they needed actually both. a lot more jobs with a small increase in budget. So that sounds like, all right, that's all I got to do, Matt. Go back to my job boards. They told me, hey, Matt told me, keep our budget, boss. We just need 100 more jobs on there, or 50% more jobs. Well, that's not how it works, right? Let's hit the stop sign on that one. There could be other options. Here's some other examples. Company that is working in educational staffing and increased their job count in the first week of May. This is literally from this past month. And job expansions didn't work. Their cost per application went up a lot, went up by 60, 70%. Conversion rate went down, hit the brakes on that one, and brought back down their job count to where it was in the end of April. And applications went up a lot. The reason this company wanted to get aggressive with job expansions is it's a busy time of year in the education industry to hire. A lot of teachers, other educational professionals, right? The school year's ending. Some states have already ended, some are ending soon, and they're looking for what they're going to do in the next school year. So we wanted to get aggressive, and it didn't work. So we pulled it back, and it worked really well when you pulled it back and got back to normal. So for them, it wasn't just, hey, sponsor more jobs, budget increased by a little bit, let's collect all those applications. It needed to be a different strategy. So what we did was the job expansions didn't work. We pulled them back. The jobs to budget ratio apparently was off. They were getting a lot of empty clicks, right? Their clicks were through the roof during that first week of May because they had more jobs out there. And usually that works, but this time it didn't. So they adjusted and saw improved results because the jobs to budget ratio was wrong. Their budget went up because they knew it was a competitive time of year, but too many jobs hurt them. So they needed to scale that back, get a little more money allocated per job, and then they saw some really nice results. They saw that cost per application go down, received more applications, and are able to recruit for a lot of those open positions. So you might need fewer jobs, not more budget. That's another takeaway. So now it's a little bit more complicated. We have two different ways to look at it. The third way is a really interesting example here from our client who in March had some interesting results for their companies. And in the first week of March, their cost per application went up by $2, which doesn't sound like a lot, but when it's basically a 60% increase, that's a lot. It was unexpected. You don't know. Market conditions happen. So what are you going to do? Well, CPA was up 59%, right? Cost per application. Cost per click was up 80%. That's a problem. Conversion rate was actually better. So number of clicks turning to applications was improving, which is awesome, but we're getting a lot fewer applications per day, right? We're down 25% in the first week of March from February. So what are we going to do? The job board reached out to the client and said, hey, increase your budget, client, because your applies are down. Your job count's up a little bit. That's the problem. When we were looking at that data and said, okay, the combination of a higher cost per application, a higher cost per click, and a lower conversion rate probably means we're overpaying for candidates. So we need to adjust. And that's what happened. We reduced their budget, as you can see by the daily spend average. This client reduced its budget and saw more applications come in. For some reason, in March, fewer candidates were looking for jobs. Don't know why. Just happened in their local market, in their geographic market. And that led to just seeing this is how you need to adjust your budget. And it's vital to do that really quickly. Because if you didn't change it in the beginning of March, you could be paying 50, 60% more for your application throughout the entire month. Your applications are going to go down by a lot. Nobody's going to be happy. The recruiters are going to complain. Managers are going to be mad, right? Your owner's going to be mad. Your clients are going to be mad. You have fewer applications, fewer candidates, and it snowballs quickly. So when you see that, it's really important to adjust. For this example, they had the same amount of jobs. They just needed less budget. So it's vital to know CPA, what's the cost per application showing us? What's the cost per click showing us? What's our conversion rate showing us? Our cost per click went up. Our conversion rate went up. We're overpaying for candidates. So when that happens, when you're overpaying for candidates, either sponsor a heck of a lot more jobs or pull it back and have lower budget. let's walk through some questions here, as I think we are wrapping up the job advertising part, and we're going to head over to some social recruiting. Talking about, I've talked a lot about Indeed and ZipRecruiter. Tom, you're right. Is Monster no longer a recommended viable option? What I can see is for staffing and recruiting, Indeed and ZipRecruiter are number one and number two. They bring the most amount of traffic. There's a whole heck of a lot of people trying to fight for number three. Monster's one of them, Talent.com, Jobcase Upward, Talroo, which is Jobs to Careers. All these different job boards are fighting to be number three, excuse me. We haven't seen a lot of great success with Monster. Some companies do. We focus a lot more on a cost per click model. Monster usually does a lot of job slots. So I would recommend, if you're looking at a cost per click model, Monster is not the best option out there. Has some nice sourcing tools. Actually, one of our clients uses, but I think focusing on Indeed and ZipRecruiter is where the most traffic is right now. With job expansions, Spencer has a question. What were the changes you made and how is this implemented? Does this mean posting the same order multiple times with the job listed under different locations? So how we handle it at Haley Marketing when we change some different, we do some expansions, is we focus on, okay, if the job comes in as a marketing specialist jobs in Buffalo, New York, what can we do? The job comes in, we use software through Appcast to program it and say, okay, for every time a marketing job in Buffalo comes in, post it as 3 different titles and also in 4 different cities. And then it extrapolates it out, right? It does our 3 or 4 different titles in 3 or 4 different cities. And one job can become 12 to 15 to 16 jobs really, really quickly. If you want to post it mainly on your end and you don't have access to automation or software, that's obviously an option, Spencer. But I definitely think that's something that can help you there. Let's walk through some social recruiting and we'll get back to some questions at the end. I want to make sure we get through the content before the end of the hour. But Facebook jobs went away here and on February 22nd, 2022. And kind of stunk for staffing agencies and anyone, actually any company out there, because it was really awesome results for a lot of companies. The integrations went away. Haley Marketing had a great integration with its career portal to send jobs over to Facebook, and that automated feed for everyone went away. Applications couldn't get sent back to your applicant tracking system or your staffing software. All the applications were living in Facebook, which is a challenge. Some other technical changes too. Job groups became general groups. Jobs on Facebook browser were removed. And now you got to figure out, okay, what the heck we're going to do? Facebook's not pushing jobs as much. There's a reason. And whenever you see Facebook make changes, it's probably because they're not making enough money off of it. Facebook wants you to stay on Facebook as long as possible. So a combination of that, right? They weren't making a lot of money probably off of this Facebook jobs integration. And they want people to stay on Facebook longer because the longer we're on Facebook, the more advertisements people can see. The more advertisements people see and engage with, then Facebook makes more money. So that's probably what happens. So what can you do? Well, you can pay to play. You can post your jobs and put some advertising money behind it. Organic traffic on Facebook is a big challenge, especially in staffing and recruiting. It's not the most exciting content out there. I'm sure you're not seeing it filled in your timelines. You're probably seeing other information, politics, pandemics, sports, entertainment fills up the timeline a little bit more often than staffing and recruiting. You need to build a bigger, stronger page following. You don't want to just automatically post your jobs on there. So you need to really build that following and have a bigger audience following your page, because if you have more people following your page, then your organic reach is going to increase. That also could lead to more engagement. What can you do to get more engagement on your post? Can your team like it? Can your team comment? Can your team share that to their own Facebook pages and really focus on those areas? It's important to have that engagement because the Facebook algorithm says, okay, if this post has a lot of likes and comments and shares, we're going to share it to more people because people are engaging with that content. That's how the algorithm works. You can focus on some other channels. Don't just have to focus on Facebook. Look at some other options. And the last one, which we'll dig into in the next couple of slides as well, become less job focused. Focus on your brand. Don't make everything transactional. Let's talk about what can you do with your employment brand. And that's on a couple of the next slides. But when you're posting jobs on Facebook, what should you focus on now? It's including pay rates, shift info, type of jobs that Facebook wants to see. People want to see that. I want to know if this job's paying X amount per hour, X amount per year. what shift it is, what type of job it is. All that little piece of information will help you. Get your team to engage with the post. Heidi just asked that question on what can you do to get your team to like or share. It's tough sometimes. You can showcase to them, I think, that posts with more likes and shares will get more distribution. You can talk about, just you want to reach a bit more people. And social media is a lot of person-to-person, one-to-one. Really, at the end, if you can get down to that, what can you do to reach more people? And if they can share it to their timelines, maybe their friends see it, or if they share it in Facebook groups and liked it, it's really vital. So to get more engagement, Heidi, I think that can help. As Eden talks about, what can we do to get our ads to stand out? I think this ad here is a really great example of that. Bright imagery. We got to get something to stop our thumbs, right? We're scrolling. What can we do to stop people when they're scrolling on their browser? Imagery works really well. And then have some great content copy that converts them. Follow up with your engaged Facebook users. That can work really, really well as also, because if someone's engaged, they probably like your content, like the jobs. Ask them to like your page if they're not following it already. Message them, engage them in a conversation and work on that. And then after your candidate applies, what the heck happens when you get an application? How often is someone checking in Facebook? How often is someone following up with that application? Speed is vital. The longer it takes, the less likely your chances are of connecting with your audience. So that's some tips there with the Facebook jobs. And finally, what can you do to build a connection with your candidates? How do you build your brand? Because we want to build our brand and not just have it be transactional. You don't want just to be a jobs to job relationship, because if it's transactional, I can drop you tomorrow for that. So I think it's really vital to focus on, what can you do to stand out to your audience in terms of employment brand, and develop that relationship with them. And let's start with the employee value proposition. What is it? What does an employee, get out of working for your company? Talked about that earlier. What do people want? What's in it for me? Conduct surveys, conduct focus groups, talk to people. What does Matt Lozar get out of working for your company? What does a candidate get out of working for your company? That's really important to know. That's what you can showcase and build your brand around. You can build so much content, video, testimonial graphics, blogs, graphics, anything, if you know what your candidates want. And there's some really great information about that. Rally Recruitment Marketing shared some of it in the Q1, and how jobs content's receiving 35% less engagement, but promoting careers is up 70%. People-focused stories are receiving twice as much engagement in Q1 versus Q4. Career progression engagement content is up 103%, whereas career advice engagement is down 77%. We don't need advice on how to find a job right now. That's simple. We need to show them the next step. What can you do to help them beyond that? That's really important. So focus on that type of content. Anything employee generated is awesome. Stories, leadership profiles, company cultures. I'll tell this story till forever at Haley Marketing, but the company I used to work with is a healthcare staffing agency out in Southern California. They staff for surgical techs and sterile techs. Their number one post a couple of years ago on their social media pages was their guacamole contest. Everybody made guacamole, brought it in, tried to beat the CEO. Likes and shares and comments more than anything else. It showcased them as a real company. Jobs are important, of course. Other content is important, of course. But what can you do to build that brand with your company? Stories, profiles, news, awards, partnerships, anything to make me want to work for you, because I have so many choices right now. That's how you build your brand. You're not just competing for the staffing agency down the street. You're competing with everybody in your local market, and possibly out of your local market if it's a remote position. So don't just focus on those jobs. Think about how the bigger picture comes into play and makes it really important into your content strategy and your content execution. But let's wrap up some job advertising. I also have a lot of great questions coming I want to try to get to here before the end of the hour. So with your job advertising, what can you do? Focus on job titles, right? That's the start. Let's go top down. Look at your job titles, do some research. What are people searching for? Analyze job descriptions. If it's What's in it for me? What needs to go in that first 2 to 4 sentences of your job description, your job posting, your job advertisement to get more people to apply for the job? Audit that application process. An ugly word, but auditing is vital here. Look at it on desktop, look at it on mobile, ask your friends, colleagues, family members, anyone you trust. Have them go through the process. See what happens. Audit that application process and understand what's going on. Then look at some software, look at some technology, look at some expertise. Who can help you manage the day-to-day of your job boards? It's a huge expense for companies in terms of just spending on the job boards. Probably one of the biggest expenses at your company when you look at the end of the year. It's vital. You want to have a lot of control over it, but working with a company, working with expertise, software, technology can give you actually more control over that spend. We showed some examples earlier, right? The different job title ideas. Increasing the budget, decreasing the budget, increasing the job count, decreasing the job count. All of that, that's vital. That will help you drive more ROI from your spend and help you spend smarter, not just spend more with your recruitment budget. If you have any questions, reach out to our team, 888-696-2900, info@haleymarketing.com. A couple other announcements here as we wrap up. Have a great landing page here, recruitmentmarketers.com/programmatic101, where we give you some more information. 30 minutes can help you save 30% on your job advertising. Scan the QR code as well, can help you get there. But recruitmentmarketers.com/programmatic101. All this information will be in the recording that gets sent out after the webinar. As always, follow the Secrets of Staffing Success, the #1 podcast for the staffing industry. Myself and Brad Biley release insights, content marketing, digital marketing, recruitment marketing content every other week. We also have some interviews from our co-CEOs on the podcast, but subscribe on your favorite podcast player. And please sign up for haleymarketing.com, our Big Ideas newsletter, haleymarketing.com/big-ideas. Ebooks, white papers, how-to guides, webinars, everything, all about staffing, all for free, all content we give away like this webinar today to help you. Upcoming webinars. Be hearing a lot of me lately, but we're going to have a couple of our clients on Thursday, June 9th, 2 p.m. Eastern. Take back control of your job spend. We're going to dig into this a little bit more. What are companies actually doing? What are companies doing to look at their spend, to look at the sources that are coming in? How are they evaluating it and making a decision where, hey, I have a $5,000 budget. I have 80% on job board A, 20% on job board B. What's that leading to in terms of quality applications, in terms of placements, in terms of what I can send out to companies? So we're going to talk to some companies and other technology that they're looking at. And finally, job advertising management services, product demo, even more in depth on what we did today. What are we doing? What levers are we pulling? What buttons are we pushing? What budgets are we changing? How are we doing this? That will help you get more results in terms of everything. So those are some upcoming webinars. Have some few minutes here. I'm going to try to walk through some questions. Mike asks, we struggle getting people to follow up after they've submitted a Facebook application. We text and call, trying to get things moving, but it tends to go nowhere. That's a common challenge, Mike. So what can we do? I think, look at your speed of that. How quickly after someone submits. I think it's vital. Get them into your database. Try to get them to continue to see your content. If it's email, if it's texting, whatever you can send to them, ask them to follow and follow your page if they aren't already. Make sure they're still engaged with your content, and just try to talk to them as quickly as you can after they apply. I know it's tough. It's a challenge because someone may apply to the job and just forget about it, or however it works. But I think that's something that's really important. Is speed of follow-up is important, but also then what kind of content are you sharing with them moving forward? Emily asks, can you please repeat the top 5 job boards? I heard Indeed and ZipRecruiter. Some other ones. Talent.com, Talroo, Talroo, is also jobs to careers. Upward Job Case is very similar. There's a lot other ones out there. Bonster Career Builder. We don't work with them too much because they're more of a job slots model. And then Emily also asked, what do you think about diversity specific sites? I think they're really great options. I would say, like anything, to measure it. I'm going to say with any job boards, what kind of results are you getting out of that? If that's DEI is a huge initiative of your company, yeah, put that into your job board mix, into your strategy. We work with Appcast. We use the Appcast Accelerate job board network sometimes, and they have a lot of great data that shows their the programmatic network, Appcast Accelerate, reaches a wider diverse audience, whether it's male, female, whether it's, other different areas of DEI. So I think that's really important to look at that and just see how it works, because everybody's going to be a little bit different. Every geography is going to be a little different, job type. So try them out, see what happens. I'm definitely going to say, yeah, they're the greatest thing ever. I'm not going to say not they're the worst thing ever. It's look at that data, look at that information, and see how it works for your company, Emily. Let's see some other questions here. Is there month-to-month examples used? Is this data from Indeed? This data is from Indeed and ZipRecruiter, Spencer. So that's where a lot of that came from. What do you recommend for Indeed's new campaign management system where you can choose to even out your budget across all jobs? This is from Lynn. I think it goes back in your recruitment strategy. You can either have a balanced approach or a maximum approach. And I think the balanced approach is more click balancing. And it really comes down to what do you want for your company? If you have, let's say, 20 jobs and you want to get 100 applications this month, let's simple math. Do you want 80 applications on 2 jobs and 20 applications across the other 18 jobs? Or do you want the algorithm to help you out and try to balance those clicks and applications across all 20 jobs? It goes into what's important for your company, because some companies may just want a lot of applications and place someone in a different opening because that order might be filled. I'm sure you have some other ones. So I think it comes down to what you're looking to do. At Haley Marketing, we do a lot with more of the maximum approach. We're not doing too much balancing. We use some other tools to help us balance our spend there. With Lynn, you're counting all applicants as equal, but maybe the data would skew if you would consider the quality applicant. It could. We would love to get more down funnel statistics. That's what industry jargon is. Love to see that in terms of, what's leading to the best information. Our webinar on June 9th will probably talk about that, where we're talking with a couple of our clients and they look at this data. What happens with Indeed, ZipRecruiter? One of our clients has so many sources that they look at and use to grow their database, and then make some good decisions based off of that. So I think that's really important. If you can look at down the funnel, we're actually working with a company right now where they're sending us a spreadsheet: red, yellow, green. Red means it's good. Yellow means it's okay. Green means it's bad good for the week. Red, yellow, green, bad, okay, good. And we adjust their spend based off of that. That's the ultimate down funnel information that helps you make the best data-driven decisions. Similar to Renee, talks about quality. That's, we work with our clients on that, but it's the integration isn't always there with tech to make the best decisions. Love for it to be there, but it's so challenging in staffing and recruiting because there's a lot of different ATS, a lot of different software, and not everything always talks nicely to each other. Kevin asks about job fairs and events and in person. I try it out, see what happens. There's always going to be some hesitancy, I think, for a while on people getting back in person, probably very dependent on the different parts of the country. And you see what happens. I haven't heard that job fairs events are huge. I would think if you're going to promote them, try to find a way to get people to sign up beforehand. And don't just wait for the job fair or event. Let's say my job fair event's in 2 weeks and someone signs up 7 days before. Follow up with them when they sign up. Don't wait. They might not wait for you. They might not show up to the event. They might go find another job. There's so many great jobs out there and open jobs that people will be moving quickly. So you don't need to wait for them to come to the event. If they show up, great. But maybe you can get some great quality candidates out of the signups before the actual event takes place. I think that's all our questions here. Great feedback and engagement from the audience. This is awesome. And appreciate your time today, whether you're watching live or on demand. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to our team. Please fill out the feedback at the end of the webinar. Feedback is a gift. Love to hear feedback, good or bad, how we can get better, what we did well, what we didn't do well. So we appreciate if you could fill that out. And if you don't have any other questions, I think we'll wrap up our webinar here today. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate your time. Hope you have a great rest of your day. Take care.